All right, let's get into it. Today, we're tackling a pretty tough idea, one that goes against a lot of what we're usually told. It's the idea that real strength, true character, isn't built in a crowd. It's built when you're all by yourself.
And wow, let's just start with this quote because it does not pull any punches. If you cannot be alone, you are not yet a person. You are a negotiation. That's a heavy hitter, right? What it's getting at is this. If your sense of self only feels solid when other people are around to prop it up, then you're not really a whole person. You're constantly bending, shifting, negotiating your very existence to fit what others expect.
Okay, so to really unpack this, we have to get something straight right away. We need to draw a really clear line between two words we throw around all the time, often as if they mean the same thing, solitude and loneliness. But according to the thinking here, they're not just different, they're complete opposites. And this chart here just lays it out so clearly. See, loneliness, that's a wound. It's the pain you feel because something is missing. It's an absence. But solitude, that's totally different. It's a capacity. It's a skill you build, the ability to be with yourself and be okay. So one is a weakness that drains you, while the other is a test that, if you pass it, actually makes you stronger. So why is this distinction so important? What's the real danger we're talking about here? Well, it's all about dependency. It's about relying on other people for our own internal balance. Think of it like this. It's scaffolding. It looks like a building, but it's not the real structure. It's just a temporary support system, not real foundational strength.
And this is where it gets a little uncomfortable. The argument is that most of the time when people seek out others, it's not really about genuine connection. It's more about self-medication, you know? We use other people to help us regulate our own emotions, to get that little hit of validation, to remind ourselves of who we think we are. Or, honestly, just to distract ourselves from all the noise going on inside our own heads. It's not about building meaning, it's about finding an anesthetic. And when you do that, you end up with this really fragile sense of self. It's a version of you that only exists when it's being observed, when it has an audience. The second the room is empty, poof, it disappears. And that is a huge problem because, as the source points out, all the real, life-altering decisions, they're made in the quiet. They're made in silence. Now, what's really important to get here is that this isn't about being a bad person. It's not a moral failure, it's a mechanical failure. It's like a bug in your operating system. It just corrupts your judgment. Think about it. If you absolutely need someone's approval, are you going to tell them the hard truth? No way. You'll bend it. If you desperately need comfort, are you going to step into a necessary conflict? Of course not. Your needs will always steer the ship, often in the wrong direction. So what's the alternative? What actually happens when you intentionally step into that silence? Well, the source calls it a crucible, like a furnace that burns away all the junk. It's this process where all the social masks you wear, all the little performances you put on just to get through the day, they all get stripped away.
And it happens in a few stages. First, there's no one there to impress. The whole performance just stops. All the energy you spend crafting an image, it has nowhere to go. Then there's no one to blame. When you're sitting with your own thoughts, you can't point a finger at anyone else for how you're feeling. It's all on you. And finally, and this is the big one, there is absolutely no one to distract you. No phone, no TV, no conversation to run to. You're just there, face to face with yourself. And this is why silence isn't empty space. It's more like a diagnostic tool. It's a mirror that shows you what's really going on under the hood. All those compulsive thought loops that run on repeat, all the unresolved fears you keep pushing down, all those impulsive urges, they all come to the surface when there's nothing to numb them. Okay, so you go through this crucible, you face all that inner noise. What's on the other side? How does that actually build a stronger character? Well, what emerges is what the source calls a quiet authority. It's a kind of strength that isn't loud or flashy. It comes from being self-sufficient. And what I find fascinating here is how this strength shows up. It's defined almost entirely by what a person doesn't do. A person who is truly comfortable alone doesn't rush their speech to fill gaps. They don't overshare just to get a reaction. They're not afraid of a little silence in a conversation. They don't cling to their job title or their social role for their identity. And they definitely don't panic the moment nobody's paying attention to them. It's an absence of that needy, nervous energy. And we've got to be really clear about something. This isn't about being cold or aloof or antisocial. It's about being contained.
Their energy is their own. Their presence feels solid, it feels grounded. And that's because they aren't constantly reaching outside of themselves, trying to borrow validation or stability from everyone around them. And that brings us to this powerful idea about authority. Real authority doesn't come from trying to dominate people. It comes from self-sufficiency. It's simple, really. When you don't need anything from someone, not their approval, not their validation, not their rescue, it becomes very, very difficult for them to control or manipulate you.
So, does this mean you're supposed to become a hermit and live alone forever? Absolutely not. That's not the point at all. In fact, it's the opposite. The whole idea is that learning to stand alone is the essential first step, the prerequisite for building genuinely strong and healthy connections with other people. Because think about it, what happens when a bunch of people who can't stand on their own get together? They don't create a strong community. They create a fragile web of codependency. It's like a house of cards. Everyone is leaning on everyone else, and the moment a real gust of wind, some real stress hits it, the whole thing comes tumbling down. But what happens when individuals who are already whole, who can already stand on their own, choose to connect? Well, they don't just patch up each other's weaknesses, they actually compound their strengths. They're coming together not because they're needy, but because they're aligned. It's a connection based on choice, not desperation. And that creates something incredibly resilient, something truly powerful. So we'll leave you with this final question to chew on. The whole point of this exercise of learning to build your own internal architecture of solitude is to ask yourself, when you step forward into a relationship, into a team, into the world, what are you dragging behind you? Is it strength, or is it a chain of your own unmet needs?